Transmogrifying color into time and space, in between the strange and the familiar. In order to give you a clear example of my final graduation strategy, I will take you along of my thought journey. The first destination is the keyword gap between the artist and the audience. How can I make the border between the artwork and the observer more blurry? The second keyword is traditional theater, hereby a quote from Bowl. The theater itself is not revolutionary. It is a rehearsal for the revolution. How can I create a 3D experience and playground for reflection? The third destination is called world building. The thought of having a whole world constructed, represented in a limited space is very inspiring for me. Hereby, the concept of synecdoche will serve as an inspiring way to represent the whole, with only portraying a part of the whole. The last destination is the Russian art collective AES+F, which is also often referred to as the social psychoanalysis. The group is creating vast surreal worlds where they combine ancient myth, medieval tales, and popular culture, as these works reflect back an exaggerated version of current societal fears and paranoia. Hereby a few keywords to remember. I want to take my previous artistic practice a few steps further by taking inspiration from AES+F and visual theoretical methods and sounds and ways of including the audience in order to become an active bridge between the uncanny worlds that I create and the audience. I will do so by transforming thoughts and stories and ideas into multimedia narratives in a limited space and time, which give the visitor the chance to be part of the reality that I create in form of an conscious experience instead of a passive observer role. I believe this is important in context of the current zeitgeist to work towards an active way of engaging the audience and portraying information, as we are so used to look at and process news and information over screens, which is almost like an invisible barrier, which creates an impersonal connection and thus a dangerous passive consumption. Is digital real? How real is our perception of the real when we're surrounded by the viral power of media and its misinterpretations? What are the consequences? What goes beyond our perception of reality? How can transforming stories of the past into modern versions help us reflect better on the present and the future? Hereby another inspiring quote. In order to investigate into those fields, I decided to divide my research into two different disciplines, the curator and the artist. My aim is to develop two concepts that will serve me as a clear direction as an artist and curator after my studies. I am well aware that both disciplines overlap each other a lot. However, for me it was important to consider them two individual disciplines in order to investigate them in a different way and develop two concepts which can work together but also individually. Here's my main research question. How can I transform and deconstruct thoughts, concepts, stories into multimedia narratives in a limited space and time in order to challenge perceptions of our collective social reality and provoke conversations which will be incorporated in the work in form of an ongoing piece? The artist individual question will be, how can I develop a coherent visual language inspired by the artist collective AES+F and theoretical visual storytelling by researching ways to depict our collective social reality in order to create surreal worlds that are both recognizable and strange so as to provoke and challenge the audience perception of our collective reality? I aim to raise provocative questions about society through visual layers of commentary and parody by deconstructing the topics that I will investigate and reconstructing them in time and space with a surreal distance and theatrical connection so as to encourage reflection and conversations. My further developed visual identity will play with stories from the past and how they influence the stories of the present and how they might shape the future by bridging the digital with the non-digital so as to confront tradition with change and vice versa. The curator individual question will be, how can I develop a concept that encourages interactivity and where the participation of the audience dictates the ongoing outcome of the work that I create, like a self-sustainable machine? I aim to find ways to include the visitor's perception, interaction into how my work is presented and curated. To cure also means to heal. Therefore, I want to investigate in its potential to encourage active engagement with the presented work in form of an ongoing artwork. How can an artwork reflect its audience in an active way? Hereby another quote. My research strategy will be divided in 3 periods. Each period I will be either working in a residency in a shared artistic space or an artistic atelier. I am currently in contact with lots of different people and places around Europe where I could benefit from and that could inspire my journey. The first period is called Creating Frameworks. The artistic side will investigate into creating a visual identity that is in between the surreal and the familiar, analyzing the language of mass media, investigating into the visual theoretical methods, and looking at past, present, future stories about the collective social reality. Ideally, all the components mentioned above will connect into one coherent concept. The curator will investigate into the multimedia facets of curating by looking into participation, interaction, and the continuous artwork. The documentation of the research will be done in 2 different sketchbooks, in form of notes, drawings, sketches, and also I will invite the audience to be part of my documentation in the dummies. The second period is called Applying Frameworks. Hereby deconstructing ideas and thoughts, old plays, and transforming them into modern versions through my developed visual language are a crucial part of my research. 2 key research methods would be A, the visual reenactment, and B, the musical notations. If you know what it is, please let me know afterwards. The curator side will focus on applying the curatorial concept that I came up with through different experiments with the audience. Hereby the term open studio is very important as I will try the concepts out in the space. During this research, I will also add the digital way of documenting my research. The last period is called Combining Frameworks. Hereby, I will combine both concepts that I will come up with into one collective space in form of a final exhibition. The final exhibition itself is also part of my research, as I will ask questions like, what conversations does my visual language start? Or how does my work changes depending on what kind of audience comes in? What is the effect for the audience to be participating into my works? I am well aware that the periods cannot be strictly divided as such, as they will most likely overlap and change directions. Therefore, I am always open for reflection and changes. Thank you very much for listening.